All right, welcome to just outside the Fiserv Forum in downtown Milwaukee. It is Open Record live from the RNC. I'm Bryan Polcyn here with Jenna Sachs. Jenna, we are going to be here all week and a lot going on. Obviously, it's already been a really busy and active day one.
It's been a busy, exciting, hot first day. We've been in and out of a lot of buildings, but a lot to see even on this first day. A lot of setup. We're meeting a lot of delegates, hearing a bit from them about what they think of our city, talking to some of them about the issues that are important to them. And it's been a real interesting day checking out the setup in Fiserv as well.
Well, and we're going to start right away with a live guest. We are joined right now here in our little small space of the platform outside Fiserv Forum by Kevin Coughlin, who is a candidate for Congress in the state of Ohio, also an Ohio delegate here at the convention. You just cast one of the first big news-making votes here. Of course, you cast your vote for Donald Trump to officially be the nominee as President of the United States. And we now know also who his running mate is going to be, and it's from your state of Ohio.
That's right.
That is J.D. Vance. This is a big day already, huh?
It is a big day. I'm excited for J.D. and obviously for Ohio. I think that's going to be helpful to all of us who are running for office in Ohio, because it's going to make Republicans even more energetic and make sure that they get out to the polls. But it's great to be in Milwaukee and to be part of the democratic process and, you know, play the role that we all play here of nominating a president and vice presidential candidate.
We're interested in your thoughts on J.D. Vance, given he's from your state. What is your reaction? Do you know him well?
I don't know him very well. He's from Cincinnati, which in my part of the state, Northeast Ohio, we call the Sovereign Republic of Cincinnati. It's pretty much on their own. But he's a very well-respected new member of the Senate. He's bringing a lot of new ideas to the Senate and to politics. I think he thinks a little non-traditionally from the politicians that we've had in the political class that we've had in Washington for the last several decades. And he's a breath of fresh air. So I'm not surprised that he's the pick, and certainly I'm not surprised that there were two people under consideration from Ohio, because we've got a lot of talent and a deep bench in our state.
If you go back not that long ago, J.D. Vance was not saying the nicest things about the new nominee, Donald Trump, and former President Trump. He was saying things, fellow Christians, everyone's watching, when we apologize for this man, Lord help us. He called him a moral disaster. Now he's his running mate.
Yeah.
How did that turnaround happen?
Well, one thing, I think it's easy to say things like that about people that you don't know. And I'm guessing that J.D. got to know President Trump over time. But more than that, when you look at his performance as president, we've had 4 years to see how Donald Trump performed as president of the United States. You know, the world's troublemakers stayed in their boxes. The economy was fairly well managed. We got hit, unfortunately, with COVID. We didn't get into any wars, but you know, so it ended on a little bit of a sour note because of the pandemic. But he got us through that, and he got us to a vaccine quickly. So, you know, I think a lot of people who maybe had a low opinion of Donald Trump back when he came down the escalator in 2015 have a different tune today, and you're going to see a lot of folks speaking from the platform this week that are in the same boat.
In a presidential race where they've talked a lot about age, I find it interesting that J.D. Vance is the same age as me. He's 39 years old. Do you think that will be something a lot of people take into consideration? We have a younger person on the ticket now?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, everybody's talked about the age of the candidates, and that's something you can't ignore. It's great to have a new generation of leadership being put forward and that you have confidence in to put on the ticket. Obviously, when Donald Trump says, "I want you to be my running mate," he's saying that I believe you could be president if you had to. And to have somebody that age who's in that position, I think is great and hopefully inspirational to a lot of people.
You could literally end up with a millennial in the White House.
That's right.
Which, like you mentioned, when we talk about the age of the presidential nominees from both parties, you know, obviously President Biden right now, and of course Donald Trump, that's been a huge factor in this campaign. How much of a difference does it make to have someone with that kind of youth as a potential?
You mentioned he added some new ideas in your state.
Sure, yeah. I've observed from J.D. that he takes a different perspective on issues than a lot of people do. And, you know, he's come from the business world, he's come from the tech industry, he's been in investing, and he's just had an experience out there in the private sector that a lot of folks who are currently serving in Congress don't have. So I just think that when you listen to him talk, he doesn't sound like the kind of people that you've probably been talking to for the last 20 years or so.
Sure.
I'm curious, so just after Saturday, when the shooting happened in Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance went on Twitter and he said some things that are getting some attention. One of the things he said was, this is not some isolated incident. And he suggested that the Biden campaign has set a tone here, that some of the things they have said that they directly led to this assassination attempt. Earlier today, David Axelrod, former senior advisor to Barack Obama, comes out and says that alone should be disqualifying. To try to tie this incident to the Biden campaign, he says goes too far. What do you say to that?
Well, the message might have been a little too soon, but I think there's some truth there. But it's on both sides. Look, the temperature has to be brought down in this country. Regardless, even if that didn't happen this past weekend, the temperature needs to be brought down. You can't spend a year telling people that someone is the next Hitler and that if he's elected, our democracy is going to end, and expect that some deranged person isn't going to take you up on that invitation. So
couldn't the same be said about some of the rhetoric from Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, I don't know what he said, but I know that when I talk to voters, when I talk to people, I keep it on issues. Yes, we may not like some of the personalities. We may think that Joe Biden's too old or that he's not competent. But at the end of the day, this election is going to be decided on the issues, and people, by and large, don't really like the policies of the Democratic Party right now, as particularly how they're affecting their pocketbooks and their savings and their investments, and the cost of things like at the grocery store and at the gas pump.
Quick, can I ask you, have you been to Milwaukee before? What are your impressions of this city?
I like Milwaukee very much. I am a very committed Midwesterner, so I have been here several times. And I love it. It's like a little Chicago with fewer problems. But I also love, right down, I just mentioned, right over here we have Mater's, over 100-year-old German restaurant.
You said.
Well, maybe at some point. I'm going to eat there before I leave this week for sure. I love that place, but it's a great town.
People are starting to like you maybe until they hear you're a Buckeyes fan. Locals. The locals are going to go, all right, never mind. Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks very much, and stay cool today if you can.
Yeah, and please enjoy your time in our city.
All right, thank you.
And welcome back to our coverage from the 2024 Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. We are located just outside of Fiserv Forum. We have been here since, about 10 a.m. this morning?
10 o'clock this morning, and it hasn't gotten any cooler.
No.
And we're in this little corridor here. You can probably see the walls. I don't know if you can or not, but it's about 6 feet wide, and there's not much airflow. So this has been a hot day.
Every now and then we get a little bit of a breeze through here.
And that feels magical. But we've actually been working quite a bit over the last few hours and put together some interviews with some of the people we've run into, and it's really the characters we have run into already. Some really interesting people.
Right.
One of the ones we met, one of the delegates we met over at the Baird Center, the new convention center, was a Florida delegate by the name of Dean Black. He is, I believe it was GOP chairman for Duval County, Florida, which is the Jacksonville area. He is also a sitting state representative in the state of Florida, and we got a chance to talk to him about his thoughts on Milwaukee, his thoughts on the assassination attempt, and much more. Let's take a listen. Is this your first time to Milwaukee? And whether it is or not, what are your impressions so far?
Well, it's my first time to Milwaukee. Really love it. Love the lakefront. Love what you're doing downtown. I love the history. What a great place for the Republican Party to come in convention, because Wisconsin, of course, is the birthplace of the Republican Party. And then the hotel where we're staying at, the Hyatt Regency.
Oh, you're at the Hyatt? Okay, yeah.
And the Florida delegation is staying at the Hyatt, and we're all walking in and then seeing the historic marker commemorating the exact spot where Teddy Roosevelt was subject to an attempted assassination so long ago. And it's highly, highly ironic.
You never knew it was going to be like that. Saturday comes around and kind of everything changes. Can you tell me where you were and what your reaction was when you saw what was happening in Pennsylvania?
Sure. We were at home, my wife and I were packing, and we were watching the rally live on TV when it happened. And we watched it, and at first...
You're still in Florida at the time?
We're still in Florida. We're packing. It's late in the evening. We're watching the rally, and we see what's going down. We see what's happening, and at first we're not sure, and then we realize what's happened, and we're first in disbelief, and then shock, and then horror, real fear, and then I don't know if it was anger then yet, but anger has certainly come about, and we're just grateful that former President Trump is okay, and our prayers and thoughts go out to the families of those who were killed and injured, and our prayers for our country too.
Does that in any way change how you feel about this week, what this week is about, what you had planned to do when you were here? How does it impact this convention?
Does it change it? In one sense, it changes nothing, and in another sense, it changes everything. And here's what I mean by that. It's full speed ahead. We're not changing our plans. We're going to persevere. We're going to follow the example of former President Trump, who defiantly held his fist skyward and said, fight, fight, fight. He's not being cowed, and we're going to persevere. And so we're not changing our itinerary, we're doing our job. But on the other hand, in a way, it's changed everything, because everything that we do now, this overlays it. It's just beneath the surface of every single conversation. And sometimes it works its way into that conversation. The emotions are just beneath the surface of everybody. You can be talking about ordinary things and suddenly this will bubble up and tears are right there pretty close.
When something like this happens, it's inevitable. No matter how too soon it might be, people start trying to play the what happened, why did it happen, how did it happen, and the blame game. Where are you in any of that? What are your reactions to what occurred, and do you hold anyone responsible, or what is your takeaway from what you saw?
Well, I don't think it's a blame game. I think it's about accountability and transparency, and it's not a game. There should be accountability, and there better be transparency in assessing that accountability. Now, we have a process, and I'm sure there will be an investigation, and we'll be looking at this for months, maybe years. But already we can tell that Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, he's in charge of the Secret Service, and by the way, the southern border too. He hasn't done a single of his cardinal responsibilities. He should have to resign immediately.
Do you believe this was a failure of the Secret Service?
There's no other way to explain how you allow a rifleman to get within 130 meters of the president in line of sight and discharge multiple rounds hitting the president. It's their responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen, and the buck stops with Secretary Mayorkas. It's his responsibility. He needs to go. They need to evaluate their systems, and they need to fix those systems.
The iconic photo we've all seen now with the fist in the air. What do you think now? What did you think when you saw it the first time, and what do you think of that moment now?
I thought, that's a leader. The man just got shot, and what is he doing? He's looking after his people. And if you had to take the 3 a.m. proverbial phone call as president, when you ask yourself who's best equipped to do that, clearly you see that in that photo, and you know that he has the vigor to do this job. And the other side, not so much. And it's inspiring to us.
One thing I'm wondering is, I know there is a lot of excitement at these conventions about the parties, including the late night parties, but I'm wondering if people are necessarily in a partying mood after what happened over the weekend.
So I think some people will be in a partying mood. But the president has said, President Trump has said that we're going to continue on. We're not changing anything we're doing. We are going to proceed. We're going to get our job done. And I think when you see the inspiration that is Trump, when you see him standing there with his fist, having just been shot, and him looking after his people and encouraging us, I think no matter whether you're tired or not, you'll go to that party. You'll go to that party or be damned, because we are going to do our job. We are going to turn out Republican voters. We're going to unite the party. We're going to unite the country. And we're going to make America great again. And we're hell-bent and determined to do it now.
Has that been your feeling since you got here? I know you said you were tired when you arrived, but you felt like you still wanted to get out and attend all the events?
Yes. Yesterday, we were up at 3:30 a.m. to fly from Jacksonville, Florida. We were wheels up at 6 a.m. We were exhausted. And then they had this big event downtown. And I thought, okay, stay home, take a nap, recharge for tomorrow, or go. And I had to think about the president and his determination. He didn't stay down. He got back up. He got engaged. And that inspiration is coloring everybody and everything we do here. We got dressed and we went to the party last night. And I think everyone will be determined to not let a single thing change. They will do their duty.
It sounds like you're determined not to be down-spirited, but to actually turn up and show the enthusiasm.
Oh, we're going to turn up. We're going to show the enthusiasm. But there is... the assassination attempt overlays it all. It has definitely colored everything we do. So yes, we're going to go. Yes, we're going to have fun. Yes, there's going to be enthusiasm. Yes, we're going to do our job. But it is also an act of defiance. because we're going to go and we're going to show up, not just to do what the convention is supposed to do, but we are going to show up to defy evil.
And that delegate was from Florida, but we have been meeting delegates from really all over the country today, a lot of them in Fiserv Forum. We also met some over at Baird earlier today. People who are showing their spirit sometimes by wearing certain things from their home state. We saw people in leis from Hawaii. The gentleman we just saw had a Buckeye necklace.
Not hard to see the Texas delegates. They're all in cowboy hats.
Cowboy hats.
Yeah.
The West Virginia has those hard hats on representing the coal industry. So we went over to the Baird Center earlier and spoke to other people there who weren't delegates, who were setting up vendor stands, who were getting ready for Convention Fest, and we'll have more with them when we come back.
Welcome back to Open Record, live at the RNC. I am Bryan Polcyn, and I'm here with Jenna Sachs. We're just outside Fiserv Forum. We're kind of in the plaza here, in between. We're in a platform here, just across from the new fashioned, right? This is I don't know how long it's been here, but it was Punch Bowl Social a while back.
Sure.
Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah. So we're smack in the middle of those two things, and there's been a lot of activity, milling about, a lot going on today. But when we got here earlier, it was kind of quiet in the beginning, right around 10 a.m.?
It was almost a little eerie because we took a while getting into the city. It was fine on the interstate. 43 down to Milwaukee. We were actually talking about how surprised we were that the roads were so clear.
Because people are avoiding downtown right now who know that there's so much going on, I'm not going to bother with that traffic. Well, the interstate was okay.
But then we got into the city, and the closer we got to the perimeter, traffic just stopped.
It got to a point,
We sat there for a while.
We were 3 blocks from the vehicle check-in point, and we just said, let's just get out and walk.
Right.
And we walked. Although, with all the gear, I don't know about that decision. It was a hot day.
It was a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
But it was interesting seeing the city with all of those barricades up, and there are no cars driving around.
Yeah,
there are no pedestrians.
Once you got inside the barricade, especially, it was like a ghost town.
Right, especially early, the delegates weren't really here as much. There were a few vendors setting up, but it was eerily quiet at the beginning.
And the first thing we did is we went to what's called Convention Fest, which is right along Kilbourne Avenue, just on the north edge of the Baird Center, and all of these tents are set up with vendors, with food and wares, and none of them were open yet.
Right, I think that runs from 1 to 5 today.
I think they said 2.
2 to 5. Well, either way, people are taking advantage. There was local food there was local merchandise, lots of Trump merchandise that people could buy as well.
Then we got inside the Baird Center, and there's more of Convention Fest inside there. We saw, of course, all the merchandise you're talking about. I think it was Heritage Foundation, part of that controversial Project 2025. They had a lot of Trump merchandise and other GOP merchandise for sale. But then you stumbled across something fascinating that was really interesting to experience.
It was. I think it's going to be a popular thing here. It was provided by something called the American Presidential Experience, and they had essentially a replica of the Oval Office in the Baird Center, so you could walk through. It was, I think, styled after President Reagan's office. There were some pictures of his family on the desk and a phone from that time and other little details like that. And they also had a place where you could take a picture behind the grand desk. And I think that's going to be a really popular thing, especially for all the history buffs.
It's not often you can literally stand inside the Oval Office, or maybe even get a chance to stand behind the president's desk. It was an interesting experience to be in there. I guess that's why it's called the Great American Experience, or the American Presidential Experience.
That's right. So we figured the gentleman who runs this business, who travels around with these displays, would have some interesting things to share about his job. He goes to a lot of different conventions. He also has a replica of Kennedy's limousine from around the time he was shot.
And a couple of Air Force One fuselages.
Right, so he makes a whole business traveling around the country and showing these displays, and we asked him about coming to the Republican National Convention. Have you ever done a convention before?
Oh, I've done every convention, been to every convention since 1976, both Democratic and Republican. We exhibited Republican convention in 2000, in 2008 at the Republican Florida, I think that was 2004, 2016 was Philadelphia, Denver was 2008, so we've been to all of them, and somehow either exhibiting the artifacts or selling official merchandise.
Do you find a lot of history buffs among the people who go to conventions who are especially excited and interested in seeing your displays?
Yeah, most of the people who are delegates or involved with the political parties are very knowledgeable about history.
And would we have seen your sets in movies or anywhere else that we might have noticed?
We have, this one was used in a movie about Lyndon Johnson in Austin 3 years ago, and then it was used in Atlanta. This was used for Saturday Night Live in 2000, we had it in New York in Rockefeller Center. And then we have one in LA that we rent out I have 5 of these. And so I have one in LA that we rent out on the West Coast when it's needed for sets, and then this one stays on the East Coast.
Are you also a bit of historians, presidential historians? You can teach people about what they're seeing?
We do. We have a docent here in the Oval Office. We have a movie playing outside that people about the Oval Office documentary.
And when did you get here? How long does setup take? How does the preparation go?
We got here on Sunday. It took us through Friday. We're still setting up. It's taken us longer this time. Usually we pull the trailer and the Oval Office into the convention floor itself, in a big exhibit hall. Here we had to unload on the dock and then transport everything in. It took us an extra day.
Do you usually have a bit of a line? Do people seem excited to come and see it?
We'll have a line of a couple hundred people, to come through, and we try to move them through so they don't linger too long to let everybody else get through.
And where are you based out of?
Washington, D.C.
And that gentleman told me he actually operates a gift shop across the street from the White House in D.C. So he's been in this business a long time. He said he started out selling buttons at a convention for Jimmy Carter.
1976, yeah.
And then he started making these replicas of the Oval Office and has been doing that ever since.
And it sounds like, as cool as it was to be in as just an average person standing in an Oval Office, it seems like he's popular with maybe some small-time filmmakers and other things, because where else are you going to get a set that looks like the Oval Office? You can't get into the White House to do that.
I know we enjoyed taking a couple pictures that I'm sure we'll post on social media. They let us sit behind the desk and act like we were tourists here.
We were there when it wasn't open yet to the public, but I imagine that'll be a very popular exhibit. He did say that at other conventions that it's been completely open to the public. Here, obviously, because of the security perimeter, it's only delegates and guests and credentialed members here who can get inside that hard security perimeter. So maybe not as many people as he would see at some other conventions, but obviously, sign of the times, security is a big deal.
Right. So he is just one of the many people who have come to town to work at this convention, and we spoke with some other people who are working here as well.
And we are going to talk about that with one gentleman who, it's the perfect day to be at the Republican National Convention for him. We'll explain why when we come back. Open Record, live at the RNC. Welcome back to Open Record, live at the RNC. I am Bryan Polcyn here with Jenna Sachs. And Jenna, we have obviously been working all day to get ready for this.
Yes.
Ted and Stephanie were doing Conventional Wisdom, the podcast, right before this, and they're already hurrying up to get ready for the newscast coming up at 4 o'clock, so a lot happening today, right?
Right, and we're told we can actually show you a shot of what our workspace looks like inside Fiserv Forum. We have a really good spot.
It's a fantastic
great view
setup.
of the stage.
It's not huge, but obviously it's a beautiful setup right above the stage. Great view, obviously catbird seat. And I feel a little bit like they don't know we're looking in on them right now. But yeah, Ted and Steph are getting ready for the show, and a lot has already happened on this first day.
Absolutely, and from our booth, you can actually see all the outlets from around the country. A lot of these different booths around Fiserv Forum have the names. So you see C-SPAN, you see CNN, you see Fox News, Newsmax, all of these big names all around Fiserv Forum, which is so different from what we're used to seeing there. It's really neat. Lots of reporters going live inside that building as well.
I was in there earlier, and this was just before any of the convention business was happening. There was a band playing, and there was already all of this energy. But then we had Kevin Coughlin from Ohio here.
Right.
When the business got going, he said it was crowded on the floor, and they didn't have enough seats for delegates. There were delegates standing. It almost sounded a bit chaotic in there.
Sure.
But one thing to say for sure, this convention, even on day one, has not lacked energy.
No, and one thing I really like about day one is that a lot of the states are doing things or wearing certain things to show their pride in where they come from. So you mentioned North Carolina. All of those delegates are wearing seersucker today, which is a good choice. You should get some seersucker for tomorrow.
That's not something
cooler.
in my wardrobe at the moment. Yeah, right.
And then we mentioned there are hard hats that the folks from West Virginia, and they told us that is because they feel very strongly about energy policy, and they talked about their pride in their coal industry. And we mentioned earlier the Texas hats, the cowboy hats, and just a lot of people wearing some really cool outfits in there, just showing their home pride.
Now, I will say, it's been interesting meeting some of the delegates, because for some of them, it's their first time to Milwaukee. They've never been here before, and you don't know what their perception might be of the city.
Right.
We had an interesting interaction with one of the first people we met as we were walking through the Baird Center.
We did.
And we saw a couple of
people from Florida who were guests of the delegates, and I asked them how they liked Milwaukee, and the woman said, yuck.
She said Milwaukee,
yeah.
yuck. And at the moment, she was taking a photograph.
Right, so she was standing outside a gender-neutral bathroom, and so she was taking a picture of that sign. And so maybe she was talking about the bathrooms that were available in the Baird.
Well, I think she was, considering when she showed you the photo,
right.
She was sending a text message of a picture of the all-gender bathroom and sending it to someone, and it said Milwaukee, and there was a puke emoji.
Puke emoji, yeah.
So she wasn't real pleased.
But we also spoke with other people who said they liked the city. She was with a gentleman who said
her husband.
That was who it was.
Yeah,
he appreciated that this is a manufacturing city. He said you actually make things here, and he was looking forward to going to Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, he said that was one of the things top on their list was to go see the Harley-Davidson Museum. So a little bit of a positive, a little bit of a not so positive from the first couple we met. But we have met so many people who've said they have been surprised by and really impressed by the city of Milwaukee.
They talked about the traffic, liking how it was a lot less traffic than a lot of the big cities.
So we just complained a few minutes ago about traffic on our way in as we got a few, that's close to security by a convention center. But they said there's no traffic here. This is something else. So
people mentioned they were excited to go to the lake in particular. And a lot of people got really good hotel rooms in the city, and they were very excited about their locations. But other people are further away in places like Lake Geneva.
If we told some of them that we do traffic reports on the morning show, they would say, why? There's no traffic here at all. But obviously compared to a Washington, D.C. or something like that, it probably seems like quite a bit less, yeah?
Yeah, but we've been excited to see the delegates, but we've also been excited to see some notable faces in the crowd today. I know we saw Reince Priebus walk by.
We just saw him passing by, it's not like we've stopped and talked to many of these people. You see Reince Priebus.
Right.
As we were standing here on the platform right behind me, there's Ron Johnson, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson.
Right, and before that we saw Carrie Lake. She was doing some interviews. Yeah. So there's a lot of famous faces walking through the crowd
We saw
today.
the MyPillow guy.
We did.
He was inside the media center, media row, inside the Panther Arena, and he's doing a bunch of interviews in there. So
right, which is also another very cool setup, that media row. You walk around and there's live interviews happening all the time, a lot of different radio shows that you recognize the names of.
So if you've been to obviously like a Wave game, or you've been to any other event, Admirals game, things like that are inside, if you think of the entire floor where the soccer or the hockey or whatever would be played, or basketball, that's all now essentially cubbies for various media outlets, radio stations, television stations, cable programs from all over the country. Some of them are conservative talkers, some of them are local media, national media, and that's where you end up having guests and surrogates and others who are essentially walking around booth to booth to booth doing interviews. There's so much media at an event like this that if you want FaceTime as a delegate or a candidate for office, boy, can you get FaceTime.
There's a lot of interviews taking place here on this pedestrian walkway outside of Fiserv. I think we can show you a shot of that as well. But there's been a lot of activity outside of Fiserv, people stopping to take pictures. There's a big Trump 2024 sign that people were lined up.
But you know what I noticed? If you look over, if you can see in the plaza, I don't know if you can see all the cornhole boards or the bag boards. No one's playing.
No one's playing.
And it makes me think maybe we think as Wisconsinites that would be fun, but maybe people
we're
from
the
other
only
states
ones.
go, we don't know what that is, or we don't do that. I don't know.
But this has been a very interesting perch for people watching. Everybody going by with distinctive outfits on. Maybe it's just for the first day, but it's great people watching from up here.
And I have to say, so grateful to Fox 6 News for the investment in both the booth inside, this setup out here, our setup inside Panther Arena, a media row. We are really well set up to cover this convention, and we are going to be here all week long, open record live at the RNC, 3 o'clock every day. See it on Fox Local. We'll be streaming it live on the Fox 6 website. So obviously, stay with us because we're going to be doing a lot more this week.
Yes, it's been a big day already with the vice presidential nominee announced. I don't think we were expecting that necessarily today.
I don't know, a lot of business already taking place, and now we're going to have a lot of speeches and more to go. J.D. Vance, the nominee for vice president, Donald Trump, the official nominee for president. That's it for today. Open record live at the RNC. We'll see you back here tomorrow.